Hi everyone, I welcome you all at Apti Plus IAS platform. In these particular videos, we are going to analyze Hindu and Indian Express editorial articles. In these particular videos, we'll not just only discuss issue that is given in editorial, but rather we are going to discuss these particular aspects, these particular articles from background. We'll discuss the main concept as well as way forward. And also you'll find that the notes have also been arranged in the format of context, body and way forward. So now let's get started. Okay, so the first article that we are going to take is right to be forgotten. Right to be forgotten. Now, guys, with respect to the right to be forgotten, there was this particular article that was there in the Indian Express paper. And there are many articles on right to be forgotten that have been there in the news. So we are going to discuss it. Now, first of all, guys, before we move in this particular article, there are some basic background information that I would like to share with you. Some basic background information is there. So you see this particular thing that when we talk about the right to be forgotten, so right to be forgotten is the part of right to privacy. Now, when we talk about India, in Puttaswamy case, in Puttaswamy case, in Puttaswamy case, Supreme Court recognized right to privacy as a fundamental right under Article 21. And because the right to privacy was recognized as the fundamental right under Article 21, there was, in fact, government constituted a BN Shri Krishna committee to recommend the privacy framework in the context of India. It recommended the data privacy bill that government introduced, but government withdrew it. Then government introduced another bill on the data privacy, which recently got passed. Now, right to be forgotten, it flows from the right to privacy. Right to be forgotten means that a person can request that some public details about them should be removed from the public. If there is some interview that is on the social media, it should be removed. So basically, right to be forgotten sometimes is also called as right to eraser. It is sometimes also called as right to eraser. So now let's see what is the situation with respect to the right to be forgotten and right to eraser. What is the situation in India? Let's understand that particular thing. So when we talk about right to be forgotten and right to erasure, okay, so you see this particular thing that first of all we have in the global context, there is GDPR, European Union general data protection rules are there now in European Union, which they brought in 2018. And whenever data privacy is concerned, whenever the data privacy or the rights of the citizens in the advent of digital platforms is concerned, always European Union's GDPR name you will find. So GDPR fine of European Union, it has provided the right to erasure of the personal data, under some specific conditions. It have provided, it has not provided a blanket absolute right here. Also, there are some other countries that are there, for example, Turkey, Spain, England, Russia. Okay, so as a part of right to privacy, they also provide the right to erasure. Okay, a right to erasure in limited capacity. Now, guys, when we talk about India, in India, right to erasure has not specifically provided in the data protection in the Privacy Act that recently got passed. Now, it is not a statutory right. It is not provided by the law, but it could be interpreted broadly as the part of right to privacy that was recognized in the Puttaswamy case. Right? That was recognized in the Puttaswamy case. Moreover, when we talk about the right to erasure or right to be forgotten, it has been upheld at multiple occasions. For example, Delhi High Court upheld the right to be forgotten. Fine, and basically, you see this particular thing that Me Too movement. What was this Me Too movement? So around the time of 2017, Me Too movement came to the peak. Now, Me Too movement was an online movement where women came on social media and they told the stories about the sexual harassment that they have faced. Now, some of the stories, they were made private, some of information was hidden. Now, when they were being re-uploaded, they were being re-uploaded. So at that point of a time, it was said that under right to be forgotten, such kind of things cannot be re-uploaded. So right to be forgotten here was recognized. Also, there is one more judgment, that is the Jorwar Singh Mundi versus Union of India case. In this particular case, what happened? Now, this particular case concerned an American citizen and right to be forgotten was given. So, the judgment that was passed in the context of Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. So, NDPS Act, okay, it basically it criminalizes and it mentions about the offenses of drug trafficking, drug trade, etc. So, in that context, there was a judgment. So, on request, it was said that the judgment will not be put in the public domain. Okay, so here the right to erasure or right to be forgotten has been provided. Now, when we talk about India, I told you that there is no statutory right in this particular thing, number one. However, right to be forgotten, can be taken up from the Article 21. What is important? Basically, it can ensure confidentiality and can protect the sensitive information. Okay. Moreover, you see this particular thing, that right to reputation has already been recognized. So sometimes to safeguard one's reputation, a person might want that some information should not be there in the public domain. So in that particular right, it is something that is to be given. But at the same time, there are certain challenges and certain criticisms that we have here. Now, what are the challenges and criticisms? The biggest challenge that comes in this particular capacity is this, that it might go against the right to information. Now, under Article number 19, fundamental right, now you see this particular thing, there are multiple judgment of Supreme Court. For example, there is Bennett Coleman case, there is an state of UP versus Raj Narayan case, there is Mr. Kulwal versus Jaipur Municipal Corporation case. In all these particular judgments, again I'll repeat, Bennett Coleman case. Again I'll repeat, Bennett Coleman case. Okay. Raj Narayan case, Kulwal versus Jaipur Municipal Corporation case. In all these particular case, Supreme Court has already recognized that the right to know is intrinsic. It is right to know is very crucial for right to speech and expression, because sometimes your speech and expression might not be possible if you don't know first. So right to know is important. So therefore, what happened? Right to information, it will come in conflict with that. But again, one more counter argument comes here. And the counter argument that comes here is that information could be sought for public authority. We have RTI Act 2005. Now, RTI Act, from where you can ask information as a right? From public authorities. So there section 2H of RTI Act provides for public authority. So anyhow, if information about the private players or private people is not being given, then that will not be a very big challenge. Okay. Then after that, what it will lead to? It will restrict the freedom of media. Journalists. Now, many number of times, in order to expose the bigger corruptions, bigger scandals, they need to dig up the personal stories because the things are often interconnected. So basically, the journalist freedom of investigative journalism, it might get impacted. So basically, what can be the way forward? How this particular entire matter can be approached? So way forward is that, number one, we need to make suitable amendments in Article 19 subclause 2. Let's understand this particular thing. Now, Article 19 subclause 2 talks about the reasonable restriction. Right now, reasonable, in the ground of reasonable restriction, privacy is not mentioned as a reasonable restriction. So mention the ground of privacy within the reasonable restriction, and then there can be the right to be forgotten that can be given. Then after that, we need to provide it as a statutory right, legal right. Okay, legal right. Moreover, Justice Shri Krishna Committee, it provided to ensure harmony between privacy and freedom of expression. In fact, that provided it. Okay. Also, what is to be done? We need to ensure this particular thing. That in the digital age, if right to be forgotten is not given. Now you see, social media is characterized by perpetual memory. Okay, so whatever is there on the social media, it stays there. Okay. So the next article that we have here is Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024. Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024. So basically, what has happened recently, Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024 was in news. So therefore, I am covering this particular article. Now, basically, what this particular bill provides, first of all, before going in this, let's take some basic background information. Now, guys, India is facing extreme climatic events in the form of flood, in the form of tsunami, in the form of landslides. If you remember, recently there were so many landslides that came in Himachal Pradesh as well as Uttarakhand. There were the flooding incidents. Today, urban flooding has become a major concern. We have seen that tragic incident that happened in Delhi Old Rajendra Nagar, where three UPSC C aspirants drowned. Okay, this was really tragic and heart-wrenching incident. Now, why that happened? Because water entered in the basement of a coaching institute. Why that happened? It happened because of the urban flooding that happened in that particular location. So today, in order to deal with the flooding and all the disasters, it has been provided that there is a need to create urban disaster management authority. Now, this urban disaster management authority will be established for the state capitals and large cities. So, right now, for large cities, for municipal, for metropolitan cities, there has to be a dedicated. There will be a fine. There will be a dedicated authority. There will be a dedicated authority. Now, further moving on in this particular direction, basically, this suggestion was given by the 15th Finance Commission as well. This suggestion was given by the 15th Finance Commission as well, that such a dedicated body is to be established. Now, what are the other features? Number one, there will be a disaster database that will be created. So there will be a national as well as a state level database. Now, these state level database and national database will have meticulous details with respect to the disaster, with respect to the vulnerability that occurred, the impact of that disaster. So all now that can be an important thing for the evidence-based decision making. Then there will be the disaster plans. There will be disaster plan. So basically, what will happen here? Okay, so there will be the disaster plans. There will be the microscopic disaster plan, national, state, then disaster plans at the level of city will be created, and they will be reviewed regularly. Okay, urban authority. So urban disaster management authority for the state capitals and major cities, that already we have discussed. Okay, then also statutory recognition, legal recognition to National Crisis Management Committee. So that it is given more teeth, so that it can approve the finances, so that it can approve the resources which are needed in the times of crisis. Okay, and then basically state government will establish state disaster response force to improve the local disaster response capabilities. Okay, so this is something. However, I will not recommend you to go a lot more in detail in this particular thing, because by the time a bill is converted in act, a lot of changes they do come, a lot of hairline details they get changed. So therefore, I'll not advise you to go too much in detail in this particular thing. Okay, now moving on. Next article that we have here is on Northern Sea Route. Okay, so here, if you see, here we have India, here we have St. Petersburg. Now, this is the existing route if trade is to be carried. This is the existing route if the trade is to be carried. Now, this particular trade route goes through Suez Canal. And this particular trade route happens to be a very longer trade route. Now, Northern Sea Route will come from the Arctic region. Bering Strait. And this particular sea route happens to be a very viable strategy for Russia to connect with the Asia. Now, if you just see from the point of view of Russia today, if Russia wants to trade with the Asian markets, it has to come from this particular sea route. But Northern Sea Route will drastically reduce this particular distance. Okay, so therefore, Northern Sea Route is something which is an important thing, and how India is also going to benefit by the Northern Sea Route. That is we are going to discuss. Now, first of all, guys, when we talk about Arctic region, now this Northern Sea Route will pass from Arctic region. Arctic region has been under ice. Okay, but now as global temperature is going up, So ice that was there in Arctic region, this particular ice is now melting. And also because Russia has acquired nuclear powered icebreaker ships, now they are able to create viable sea route in less time with less cost associated. Moreover, Arctic region in itself has a lot of untapped natural resources. It has a lot of untapped natural resources. So when we talk about the Northern Sea route, when we talk about the Northern Sea route, so basically you see 40% of the world's untapped hydrocarbon, fine, which are very much crucial for India's energy security, they are contained there. Okay, and the most important resources that are there in this particular region, they are coal, gypsum, diamond, rare earth minerals, they are in the Arctic region. So India has always been interested in state in Arctic region. India has also been interested in drilling of the Arctic region without tampering with the without tempering the environment around the Arctic region. And when we talk about India's engagement in the Arctic region, so India's engagement in Arctic region has been historical since 1920. So in 1920, there was the Svalbard Treaty that was signed with respect to the Arctic region. Now, since 1920, India has maintained active presence in Arctic region, and also there is the Himadri Research Station that is there. Also, in the Arctic Council meetings, also India has regularly participated. Fine. Moreover, when we talk about the environmental importance of Arctic regions is very important for global climate patterns. Okay, melting of Arctic ice is a bigger threat, but if that particular thing can be managed, and if sustainably Arctic region sustainably Arctic region can be managed, it can lead to a lot of economic benefits for India. Okay. Now the this Northern Sea route would be around 5,600-kilometer route. That path already I have shown you. Okay. So when we talk about the Northern Sea route, so Northern Sea route will be a 5,600-kilometer route. Okay, it will be a 5,600-kilometer route. It will be starting from Murmansk. Okay, it will be starting from Murmansk. Okay, and it will replace the existing sea route that is there. Okay, it is very much important for connecting traditional route that has been there. Now, when we talk about Russia, Russia is now bringing the navigability. Okay, it is trying to navigate through the Northern Sea route. Now, India's engagement with Northern Sea route. So, what has happened in the past in the past 5-6 years, particularly post 2018, India has got actively involved in the Northern Sea routes, and a lot of shipments that India is carrying with the Russia, they are preferring the Northern Sea route. And if we see, there has been a quantum increase, fine, by 73% between 2018 to 2022. Also, Russia's important crude oil, coal, they are coming from the Northern Sea route. And in fact, Chennai Vladivostok Maritime Corridor has also been started, which will be connecting India and Russia for economic trade route. And there also, Northern Sea route is going to be used. Now, when we talk about this particular thing, when we talk about the Northern Sea route will be very much crucial. It will basically will bring the ease of transportation, but at the same time, India has to balance, because too much cooperation, too much economic collaboration with Russia sometimes goes against, it goes against the India US relation. Also, India also aims to balance the influence of China and Russia over the Northern Sea route. Okay. So in this particular capacity, now what happens? Russia is planning to boost the cargo capacity by 2035. India needs to involve in this particular region actively, but India should not end up playing the second fiddle to Russia or China or any other country. India has to ensure its autonomy as well. Okay, that is all about it. And now we'll move to next article. Defending disability reservation. So recently, guys, this thing happened. Now this article will take with respect to GS paper number 2, social justice. Now recently there was this incident happened where um, where a woman, fine, she used fake disability certificates. She used fake disability certificates to get IAS rank, to get the IA, to enter in the civil services, and she even got the posting as an IAS officer. After that, what has happened? A lot of backlash has come, and many people are saying that entire PWD reservation is to be removed. Entire PWD reservation is to be removed. Now, removing PWD reservation might not be the right thing. In fact, one of Niti Aayog's official has suggested that there is a need to review the PWD reservation, particularly the mental disabilities, Now, first of all, guys, understand this particular thing, that whether we should review it or whether we should not review it. For that, some basic things, first of all, will be understanding. Some basic things will be understanding. Now, you see this particular thing, that first of all, when we approach disability, there is United Nation Convention on Rights of Person with Disabilities. United Nation Convention on Right of Person with Disabilities. Now, this particular convention has been signed by India. Also, there are some other frameworks that we have. Now, why I am telling you, just give me 1 minute, you'll understand that. Then there are some other international frameworks also that are there. For example, there is Bivako Millennium Framework. Bivako Millennium Framework is there. There is Incheon Strategy. And then there are Sustainable Development Goals. So, United Nation Convention on Rights of Person with Disabilities, Bivako Millennium Framework Goal, Incheon Strategy, and Sustainable Development Goals we have. Now, all of them, what they talk about? They talk about creating inclusive barrier-free society. Barrier-free society. Okay, very good. Inclusive barrier-free society. Moreover, they say that we need to move from medical model of disability to social model of disability. What they say? They say that we need to move from medical model of disability to social model of disability. We need to move from medical model of disability to the social model of disability. Now, what is medical model of disability? Medical model of disability sees disability just as a medical biological condition. But the social model of disability goes beyond that. Social model of disability sees that disability sometimes lead to certain discriminations. It leads to some deprivations, and therefore those deprivations, etc., are also to be eradicated. So any disability law, any disability policy, if a country comes out with, then that disability policy, disability law has also to deal with the disabilities and discriminations that are there. In this particular line, the case of reservation now comes. Why we are giving reservation? We are giving reservation because of the fact that their disabilities might give them a kind of a disadvantage, and because of that they will never be able to get proper representation. So this is the reason that reservation has been given. Now, when we talk about the reservation, as of now, we have now, in fact, after we signed this United Nations Convention on Right of Person with Disabilities, after we signed this, what happened? India has come out with Right of Person with Disabilities Act 2016. Right of Person with Disabilities Act 2016. We came out with this. Okay. It provides that at least 4% reservation is to be provided to disabled people in government job. Earlier reservation was 3%. Now it got increased to 4% through this Right of Person with Disabilities Act. So 4% jobs in government are reserved for disabled people. Okay. This is something that has happened. Here already. Now, what is the issue? Issue is that one of our Niti Aayog officials suggested that these reservations are to be reviewed. First of all, we need to see that what are the challenges that are faced by a person with disability. Number one, lack of accessible infrastructure and education. Okay. This can be called as the problem of poorly designed world. Schools, buildings are not accessible. If they are accessible, basically many number of times they fail to provide. Now you see the people having visual disability, people having cognitive disability, how many school and colleges you can recall specially meant for them? If they are there, often they are not at a walkable distance, they are very far away. There are private institutions which charge a lot of fees, there are private institutions which charge a lot of fees. So point is that availability of education is not there for them. If that is available, they are not accessible properly, and then we say that they should and then what we say that they should compete with the general people without any reservation. That is not going to be equity, that will be wrong. Secondly, even in workplace they are not accommodated, there is a lot of social stigma against disabled people. Okay, there are biases that are there. Now basically we find also this particular thing, that there is a deep rooted ableism, deep rooted ableism. Now what we think, we always think from the mind, we always think from the perspective of an able bodied person. Because now you see, in fact when we talk about parliament, how many MPs and ministers you can recall in parliament who have some discernible who have the disability? So many number of times the policy makers, they fail to take in account the perspective of the disabled people. So there is a kind of an ableism, there is a kind of an ableism in policy making, ableism in policy making. Okay, ableism in policy making. Then after that, criticism of generalization. Okay, so what is this criticism of generalization? Often what happen, one or two people who have misused a policy, we think that everyone misuses it, and just because one or two people have misused it, we question that entire policy. Okay, yes, reservation has been misused by one person or few other person, but that is not the reason to question entire policy, that is not the reason to question entire policy. Rather problem that is there is in the certification system. Reservation policy is not problematic, but the problematic is the certification that is being given. In the case that we just mentioned, what happened? Authorities were not able to certify properly that whether this person should be given or not. Okay, now when we talk about the present system, what it does, it focuses on the percentage of disability and not on the functional limitation. Okay, not on the functional limitation. So that is wrong, it needs to be changed, it needs to be changed. Moreover, if we talk about the employment rate, now you see this particular thing, according to national sample survey, 23.8% of person with disabilities were employed compared to national employment rate of 50.2%. You see, half, you see it is half. So employment rate is just 23.2%. Quarter people are employed. So for that, it is very much important to give them level playing field with the help of reservation. Okay, educational barriers are already we have discussed. So therefore, what is needed? We need to ensure that fraudulent use should not be there. So first of all, the issue of these, now as these certificates are being issued, government organization, basically the authorities need to ensure that objective assessment is being done, and when these certificates are being furnished to the employment bodies or to the organization wherever they are being given, they need to testify, they need to verify them also. Okay, fine, moving on. Global struggle for a pandemic treaty, global struggle for a pandemic treaty. So basically what is happening, 77th World Health Assembly, 77th World Health Assembly recently, okay, fine. Okay, what has happened? 77th World Health Assembly recently has agreed to enhance the cooperation and coordination for health emergencies. First of all, what is World Health Assembly? So you might be knowing about WHO, World Health Organization. So highest decision making body in the WHO is World Health Assembly, is the World Health Assembly. And recently the session of World Health Assembly was held. Recently the session of World Health Assembly was held. Now 2020 we have seen COVID pandemic, and post COVID pandemic these particular suggestions have been given by multiple bodies including the Lancet Health Journal, by WHO, that now the pandemics will be closely placed. Last pandemic was in 1920. Fine, Spanish influenza. 2020 pandemic was after 100 years. But now, because of the emergence of zoonotic diseases, there might be more pandemics that would be there. There might be more pandemics that would be there. So we need to be prepared. And therefore, global pandemic treaty comes in picture. Now, this global pandemic treaty is being negotiated. Fine. It is being negotiated. And now we see that there is World Health Assembly has agreed to introduce a pandemic emergency treaty. Now we need to understand that what is this pandemic treaty? Beyond that, we need not to go. So number one, this pandemic treaty, it talks about the pandemic access and benefit sharing. Now you see this particular thing. During a pandemic, there was this issue of vaccine nationalism that was there in the news. Now, what is this vaccine nationalism? So, large number of countries, they procured maximum vaccines for their own people. Large number of countries, they procured maximum vaccine for their own people. WHO says that if rich countries will procure maximum vaccines for their own people, it will not lead to vaccine equity. Poor people might not be able to avail the vaccines. It might go against the principle of vaccine equity. This is a problematic thing. That we have. So therefore, number one, there should be fair distribution of vaccine, diagnostic kits and devices. Priority should be given to the low and middle income countries for the vaccine, because many of them might not be able to afford it. Wealthy nation should provide the resources to middle income countries, poor countries. Then next is barriers in technology sometimes hinder the pandemic response. For example, suppose there is a vaccine. That has been finalized. Now, this particular vaccine might not reach the public because there might be the patent that has been taken by some of a pharmaceutical company. Okay, many number of a times. Now, if we talk about in India, there is a compulsory licensing that we have. Now, what is this compulsory licensing? So, through this compulsory licensing, India can allow the generic manufacturers to make the same drug or some vaccine that is there. We can open the patent through using the compulsory licensing provision that we have in India. Similar provisions other countries also have. But if they'll do that, then the Western countries will file the case under WTO saying that this is unfair, etc. So this should not happen. Technological barriers should not be brought in between now. Fine, there is a need to reform the TRIPS agreement. Okay, because now TRIPS agreement is under WTO, okay, which restricts it. Then one health approach. Now, whenever the question on One Health comes, just one thing you need to do. Whenever there is One Health question that comes, make this particular diagram always. What is One Health? Now, here in between, One Health is there. Now, you see this thing. Concept of One Health provides this particular thing. Simply provides this particular thing, that health of animal, health of human, health of environment are all connected. Here, in between, where the animal is healthy, human is healthy, and environment is healthy, here the One Health will be achieved. You cannot keep human healthy in isolation. Human will not be healthy until and unless environment is not healthy, until and unless animals are not healthy. So One Health provides the integrated approach of health towards environment, animal, and human. Okay. Now, so it promotes One Health concept, and then global cooperation and equity. Is to be promoted during the time of pandemic. So it is needed that the countries should come together and should have a collective policy, should have cooperative arrangements in the time of pandemic, which they should utilize. Now, moving on in this particular direction, India and China manufacturing team. Now, guys, you see this particular thing, that when India and China is concerned, often now the perception is such that whenever the India and China is concerned, the article will have a kind of a confrontationist kind of a tone. But this particular article, rather than talking on confrontationist tone, it is talking about enhancing cooperation between India and China. Enhancing cooperation between India and China. Now, what this particular article says? Article says that if India and China can collaborate on trade, if India and China can collaborate on trade, it will be a win-win situation for both. Let's understand this particular thing. Post 2020, what has happened? As COVID pandemic started, at that point of a time, Donald Trump outrightly said that it is because of the China. China deliberately has spread the virus. That they said one thing. Then after that, a movement got started of decoupling and de-risking. In this decoupling movement, Western countries, rich countries, developed countries, they started saying that we want to disassociate from the China. And manufacturing companies from China, they started moving in the other countries. Because of that, China as manufacturing power has suffered a lot. China as manufacturing power has suffered a lot. Now, it is provided that actually what can be done? What can be done? India and China can come together. India and China can come together. So basically, India can import certain components from China, can can import the components from China, can finish it, can process it, and then final finished processed good can be exported to the Western countries. Can be exported to the Western countries, and in between, it will be a win-win position for India. It will be a win-win position for India. Now, if we see basically US-China relation after the 2008 has impacted the global trade. Their relation is not stable. Even the Trump tariff war. Okay, so what has happened in the Trump era? Relation between China and USA got impacted. But US needs the crucial supplies. So they can be provided by India, and at the back end, India can take the support of China. India can take the support of China. Now, in fact, we already have the systems established. For example, production linked incentive scheme we already brought. What is this production linked incentive scheme? In production linked incentive scheme, we give incentive to the manufacturing facilities so that they start manufacturing in India. We give incentive to electronics, we give incentives even now to semiconductors also, we are giving incentives. Mobile manufacturing units, we are giving incentives. And what is happening? Large number of manufacturers are actually coming and are setting up their production in India. Now, big Chinese firms, big Chinese manufacturers, they can be attracted in India through this PLI scheme, because anyhow they are suffering the market because the Western perception is not good towards the China. So this can be a good collaboration. Also, it says that joint ventures between India and Chinese firm can also be started. Okay, so Chinese brand like Xiaomi, they have started their manufacturing in India. Okay, and it is being called as a trampoline game. Okay, so manufacturers from trampoline. What is a trampoline? Trampoline is one on which you jump. Okay, so companies are jumping from China to India. From India, they are making goods, and those goods are then being sent to US. So this is a trampoline game between the US, China, and India. So from China, companies come to India. From India, they supply the goods to US. So this is something that can be done. So what is needed? Number one, we need to enhance collaboration. Joint ventures between India and China are to be promoted. Moreover, basically, government to government collaboration, collaboration between business units, business sector, it is also to be enhanced. The next PLI scheme is to be leveraged. It needs to be modified. More financial outlays are to be provided to PLI scheme. Then trade barriers that are there, they are needed to be addressed. Okay, infrastructure, obviously, to invest infrastructure, to invest the investment, what is needed? It is needed that then we need to have adequate infrastructure. Okay, and the strategic partnership can be signed. So this is, guys, all about it. Now, moving on, here we have one, here I have given you two questions from the mains perspective. Now let's read the question. Question says, analyze the importance of reservation for person with disabilities in India. Discuss the challenges faced by person with disabilities and suggest measures to improve the effectiveness of disability certificate system. Discuss the need for a global pandemic treaty in the wake of COVID-19. Evaluate the core issues it aims to address, such as equitable resource distribution and international cooperation, and suggest ways to overcome challenges. Okay, so two questions. Both the questions will be 15 marker, 15 mark, 15 mark, 250 words. Okay, so guys, I hope that you have understood it, and I also expect that you have liked this particular initiative also of integrating the mains answer. Suggest if you like it, will continue it, not a problem. So guys, that is all for this particular dimension.